Hey everyone, welcome to the main event. My name is Joe Tillman, and it is, Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. And if you don't know who I am, what I'm doing behind this microphone, sitting in front of this camera, if you're watching live on YouTube, my name is Joe Tillman. I've been in the hair restoration industry for 20 years, having worked with some of the top clinics in the world for 11 years in clinic, learning all about surgical techniques and just absorbing anything and everything I could about surgery because I just find it to be quite fascinating. And it all came from wanting to learn more about the repair work that I needed and got from my first two surgeries performed in 1992 or 93. I still can't remember which year it was. I need to double check that. And got in the industry because of the turnaround that I was able to have after being bald for 9 years, going through my 20s and having what looked like ant legs on growth hormone sticking out of my forehead because the work that was performed on me was bad. I had two wide strip scars. Don't call yet. No, we're not ready yet. Had two wide strip scars and got in the industry just because just crazy about it. And for better, for worse, it is my life and I enjoy it. And that's why I'm here in front of you today. I don't sell anything. I do work with 15 different doctors worldwide, and I have reviewed them and indicated my opinion that I feel that they are worth your consideration. And this is based on having gone to these clinics, most of them, and reviewed their protocols and how they do things behind the scenes using my clinical and surgical background in this industry. So I don't just look at pretty pictures and say, yeah, I want to have them on my website or as a member. I really do put these doctors through the ringer with regards to their applications. So with that said, I've already got a caller on the line here. So thank you for holding quietly. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, my name's Andy, calling from Washington, D.C.
What was your name, Andy?
Yep.
Andy, thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm good. I hit you up in the chat room yesterday about sending some photos, and you said you would do a consult, so I sent them. I don't know if you can do them or another time.
Oh, I had zero intention of setting that up for today because I've just been so busy. The way that's going to work is I'm going to create an actual video where I upload it. It won't be the show. It'll be an actual video where I upload it, and I'll discuss your case, and I'll email you as soon as that's ready. That's not for the show. That's not a show thing that I do. So
okay, no worries.
Or maybe I could. Maybe I could. It's just I'm not set up for that. I don't have. I haven't downloaded your photos. I haven't looked over everything. Did you send that today? You sent that today, didn't you?
Yeah, just about an hour ago, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's zero time for that. There's so much I do before the show gets ready. So, so just give me some time. Like it's not something I can just crank out because I got other things I'm doing. But are you looking to have surgery like tomorrow, figuratively speaking?
No, I mean, we've been looking at it off and on for years and just haven't pulled the trigger. But,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, give me some more background. Tell me, how old are you, and what's your hair loss pattern like? Have you had consultations with clinics already? What have they said? Who'd you talk to? What are your goals? What did they say is possible? Give me the skinny.
I'm 53, and I've had a couple of consults with, I think, all the doctors that I'm in the D.C. area, so I saw Dr. Lindsay here, and I didn't feel like he was a great match for me. And then I also saw Cooley in North Carolina, and I saw in New York. What's his name?
Dr. Cole?
No.
Dr. Wesley? Dr. Bernstein?
Bernstein.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think I was comfortable with them, the surgeons, but I just, medication has not worked great for me. So I'm a little concerned about doing the transplant and then just continuing to lose hair and then, ending up with not a great situation.
Right. Right. No, I understand. Well, what kind of hair loss are you experiencing? What have you been listed as far as like the hair loss chart? What Norwood are you?
I'm saying about a 4-ish probably.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a bridge still there.
Okay.
But yeah, the crown is definitely, balding and then it's receding.
Mm-hmm.
And despite being on medication, I seem to be following my dad's pattern.
Okay. All right. And what is your dad's pattern? A 6, 7?
By the time he passed away, he was whatever the most. I mean, he had maybe an inch of hair, like that little horseshoe you have left.
Okay.
He had very, very little hair left.
Okay, so, all right. Well, my question to you then is, you said you do not want to take medication. Is that correct?
No, I do. I've been taking it for 13 years.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Very, very minimal effect.
Are you taking name brand or are you taking generic?
I took generic Propecia for probably about 8 years, and then I switched to brand name for 2, and then I've been on brand name Abidart for 3.
Okay. Okay. And what did the different doctors tell you as far as your response to these medications?
I don't think they knew, but it was like, they thought it might at least be slowing it down some. But I mean, there's no denying there's been significant progression since I started it, 13 years ago.
Right. So have you tried anything other than DHT inhibitors? Have you tried minoxidil, topical, oral? Have you tried lasers? Have you tried PRP, exosomes, anything like that? Or has it been strictly?
No, I actually do, because I think it was Dr. Cooley gave me a prescription for oral minoxidil, and I have actually filled it, and I have not taken the leap and started taking it because it concerns me a bit. But I haven't tried the topical. And
right.
I was actually listening to your show when I think Dr. Yaker was on, and he had, was talking about the topical that he uses, and has said that they've seen good results. And I was thinking maybe switching to a topical minoxidil finasteride combination instead of taking the pills. But
it's just one thing to consider, and this is just me. Like, you've already had the script filled. You're concerned about the side effects, but just 30,000 foot view, and forgive the assumption, but you filled the prescription. You've not started to take the medication because you're kind of concerned about the side effects, but you've not done anything to actually talk to your doctor about the side effects. Yes or no?
I did. I just asked Dr. Cooley about them. They didn't seem to think at that small a dose that I would have any problems.
I understand that, but your primary. Do you have a primary doctor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't talked to him about it.
Okay,
no.
I would talk to him because he knows you. He knows your setup better than Dr. Cooley does. So he'd be in a much stronger position to say, okay, look, you got zero history of anything. I have no problem with this. It's a very low dosage. Knock yourself out. Good luck. Or he might say, well, you do have a family history of this, and cardiac disease or blood pressure issue, whatever. Okay, and he may say, maybe not the best idea. But I think that if you talk to your doctor, the one that actually knows your history and knows you, I think that will help to give you more of a clear path to take when it comes to oral minoxidil. And then you can decide what else to take. But you've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I can appreciate that. Like, good for you. Like, that's great. You've been taking a long time to think about it. But when it comes to the preventative medication, I think that you should act a bit more swiftly, because every day that you're not finding out which path you want to take, and taking that step is another step of potentially more hair loss. And so I would like for you to take that step to find out, talk to your doctor and say, this is what was prescribed to me by a hair restoration specialist. What do you think based on my family history and my history? Do you think this is okay? And he'll say yes or no, or she'll say yes or no, whoever it is. And then you'll know. You can take that step or not take that step and move on to maybe a topical. I think that would be fantastic for you so that you can get a handle on this progression that you're dealing with. So if you do wind up having surgery, you can feel better about it, knowing that maybe that foundation is a bit more solid before you build on top of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Do you is there anyone that you recommend or know of in the DC area other than Dr. Lindsay, or
no?
Is he pretty much no.
Closest one is Dr. Cooley, and then trying to think. No, I don't know of anyone else. Yeah, between DC and New York or DC and Charlotte, no. That's it. So. Okay. And you didn't care for it, so that's fine. What are your goals for surgery if you wind up going for it?
I mean, I think realistically would be a really conservative, far back hairline, and then either leaving the bald spot in the back alone, or just really light coverage.
Okay.
Knowing that I would likely need additional procedures, but I'm just afraid that by the time I get to 70, God willing, that there's not going to be any donor hair left, and then it's going to keep. You do occasionally see people that have, clearly have transplanted hair on their head, and then what used to be their part line is now about 2 inches wide, and to
play devil's advocate here, that's actually not indicative of surgery unless the work itself is obviously surgical. Because I've seen, I even documented this in a video I made years ago where I'm showing the patterns of hair loss that you'll find in nature that are not documented by the Norwood Hamilton chart. And one of them is where the sides drop, but you're not completely bald on top. You still have hair on top. And it creates that gulf on either side of the scalp, the gaps, as it were, where the parietal humps may have thinned out and then the sides drop, but you still have plenty of. I've seen some cases where there's plenty of hair on top. It's just the part line itself decides to go south for some reason, and it widen. And that area widens up. So it doesn't indicate that surgery's been done. It just does if the surgery is obvious. So keep that in mind. I personally think that if you continue to lose hair, but the work that you've had looks natural, as long as nothing surgical, as far as evidence has been exposed, then it's not the end of the world. People talk about this. I see doctors talking about this, like, oh well, you need to make sure that you don't lose any more hair, because if you do, then the size will drop, and it's actually not that big of a deal when you think about it. Like, obviously, we want to keep our donor hair. Obviously, we want to stay on preventative medication and make everything as strong as possible for the long term. But worst case scenario, if the sides do drop, it's not the end of the world. It's still a natural pattern. So. That may be controversial. Like, some people may think it's heresy to even say that, but it's true. Like, if it exists in nature, then what's the problem? Doesn't mean you want it, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you occasionally, they sort of have that, that horseshoe of what they would have had they, just gone bald, and there's like a patch of hair kind of in the front where they had the transplant. And then so the crown's kind of bald, and then they're like the area above the ears and around the back is bald. There's like a big space in between. And I feel like that kind of happens if you sort of run out of any more donor hair to keep filling it in.
Yeah, it can. It can. But, look, you've gone for 13 years of research without pulling the trigger. You're 53 now. is it, I think I know the answer to this, is it absolutely critical that you have surgery? I think the answer would be no. So, I think that your best bet is to continue with the search for the medication balance that works for you. And who knows, maybe oral minoxidil or one of these topical formulations will maybe turn things around for you. Like if you have miniaturized hairs on top of your scalp, they can still be turned around. I've seen it happen. But, 13 years is a long time, man. And
yeah, but to the point now, you'll see if you look at the photos where the comb over is really ridiculous at this point. And I still can't, as people with comb overs do, you just can't bring yourself to get rid of it.
I certainly understand that.
To the point
I certainly
where
understand that.
I've got to just buzz it off or do the plugs. I can't. The comb over's just gotten absurd.
Well, that was my next question: is why not just shave it? Just
because I just hate it. Oh, I would just hate it so much.
Have you done it before?
No.
Well, then you don't know if you'll hate it. You might be like, God damn, this is actually pretty nice. I like this.
I do. The 2 times I think about it, I think of the weight being lifted because the acrobatics involved in getting the comb over into place and then just never leaving without a hat and worrying, is it going to be windy today? And please don't put the car windows down. And so there is this sense of just, oh my God, what a sense of freedom to just not deal with it anymore.
It is liberating as hell. Let me tell you, I saw someone somewhere posted something about who here had their head shaved before surgery and realized that they like it. That was me. Like when I had my head shaved before my first repair with Dr. Wong 20 years ago, I was like, this isn't so bad. Now, my concern about shaving my head was realized. Like the thick grafts that I had from before, they were sticking out, and they did look pretty bad. But overall, having the shaved look wasn't so bad. In fact, after my first surgery, shaving my head was an option because it looked just that good, and I could have moved on. I could be shaving my head now, and I'd be happy with it. But
do you still have like a linear scar on the back though? Or?
Oh yeah. But it's pretty difficult to see, even at short haircuts. Especially the sides. In fact, what's more visible, the scar isn't really visible. You got to look for it. In fact, when it's actually down on the skin, when it's a fresh zero guard cut, you have to look hard to see the scar. There's grafts that have been placed into the scar, but in the back, on the sides, it's just so thin from excellent healing because I'm a genetic marvel. And because of surgical excellence from Dr. Wong, it just closed up beautifully. And it's when it starts to get some length to it that the scar isn't so visible. It's the change in hair direction that occurs when you have a lot of strip surgery, where it takes out, it removes. It's like removing a piece of a puzzle and then putting the 2 pieces above and below that piece together. It just doesn't mesh very well. So that's the problem with my donor area. It's not the scarring. It's when it's at a certain at shorter lengths, you can see that change in hair direction. It's very abrupt, and it actually creates a line. It's hard to describe, but you can see it in some of my photos. And right now, it's long enough. It's still pretty short, but it's long enough to where it's not nearly as visible as it is when it's at like maybe a 2 guard. Right now it's about on the side's about a 3, maybe a 3 guard. But when it's at a 2 guard or shorter, you can see it. So
if you do, suppose you get a transplant, then maybe a second one, and then eventually you're just either you don't have much donor supply left, or for whatever reason you just decide to buzz everything down to like a 1 or a 2. What does the hair that's been moved to the top in front of your head look like when it's cut down that short? Can you see like the 2s and the 3s and they look pluggy, or
no? Well, it depends on a few factors. Number one, it depends on your hair type, and if you have, but then hair type, and then the surgeon, where they place them, like how close to the frontal hairline were they placed? Are they sparse? Are they exiting the scalp at a proper angle, flatter to the plane of the scalp as opposed to vertical? The incisions, are they contracting around that graft, making it kind of bunch up? That's something that's never spoken about. But when you have a graft that's too big for an incision and you place it in and it starts to heal up, it actually squeezes that graft, and it can make 2 or 3 hairs kind of look like they're exiting from the same hole, like a pore. When you look at the scalp and you see hair sticking out, it looks like they're sticking out of a pore. It looks like you got 3 hairs sticking out of one pore, and it just doesn't look very good, because usually little scar tissue as well. But if it's done properly, proper spacing or density, I should say, angle, direction, all that stuff is on point, and you're a good healer, then yeah, it's indistinguishable, especially when you have angle and direction down the way it should be. Indistinguishable. So, yeah, I mean, it just depends on, several factors, several variables actually, and it can look fantastic with a nice buzz cut, for sure.
That makes me a little more comfortable with having it done if at some point, I just decided, because, that's the whole thing too with, it's a rabbit hole. I thought, you know more than anybody. It's highly unlikely, especially with me, that you're one and done. It's, something.
Well, in your case, I can virtually guarantee you would be a 2 or a 3 and still not done, because of the area, the areas that you want to get done in your continued hair loss, that kind of issue that you're dealing with. My advice for you, just based on talking to you, is obviously don't pull the trigger anytime soon. Keep looking for non-surgical alternatives to stop your loss, to at the very least to slow it to a crawl, and don't have surgery until you find that moment or that combination. And even then, maybe still don't have surgery, because no, seriously, because you're not, like, 13 years, man. It's like, it's not it's not a priority.
Yeah, but I mean, 6-7 years ago it wasn't as bad as it is now. But one more question, I'll let you go. So I'm just thinking that I could be someone that eventually I'm just going to have to buzz it off. And, my understanding from what I hear from you is, if you're going to do multiple transplants, the FUT is probably the better one to start with. And I know that FUE is not scarless, and my complexion is not dark, but it's a little Mediterranean. So I probably might scar a little more than a fair-skinned person. Mm-hmm. But would it make sense to maybe do FUE? Would that, if I do eventually just buzz it off, and then I wouldn't have a linear scar, but
I would say that would make more sense, but I would say in that case, if you're going to consider FUE, make sure you go to a clinic where you can see a demonstrable level of consistency with regards to very well spread out donor extraction patterns. Because the number one thing that gives away that it's an FUE surgery is a well-defined box of extractions where you have a very abrupt demarcation on either side, and the top and the bottom, where it's almost like a rectangle was stuck on the back of the patient's scalp, and they just took grafts from that specific area, and then didn't bother blending it in with more extractions into the surrounding area. I'm a big believer in, Dr. Erdogan at ASMED talks a lot about the homogeneous donor zone, where he's trying to remove density throughout the entire donor area to where it matches more closely with the density in the recipient area. So there's a homogeneous nature to the entire scalp density. And, that part, that's, it's not so much of a black and white issue, but when it comes to the donor area itself, I'm a big believer in the homogeneous nature of extraction, where you are taking from all areas that you can, as long as it looks like they've got, a modicum of reasonable DHT resistance. You don't, you do your examination, but it's not so much just taking from all over the scalp. It's taking areas from the denser part of the scalp to blend them into the less dense areas, so that you don't have as much of a chance of seeing that extraction pattern, if that makes sense. And
and Dr. Cole is a good one for FUE, right?
Yeah, well, of course.
On your show.
Of course, yeah. He's, not that this is actually, just being completely fair here, not that it denotes quality, but he is the guy that led the charge for FUE hardcore online 20 years ago. Like he was the loudest voice 20 years ago about the transition into FUE, and he was the first clinic in North America to ditch officially strip surgery for all FUE. Now, does that mean that he's fantastic at it? By association of that claim, no. But he just happens to have a very artistic eye. He happens to have very good hands when it comes to extraction, when it comes to creating natural hairlines, all the things that you do want to find in a surgeon for consistency, he's got it. So thankfully, the background and the drive just happens to be in the same body as the guy that's got great hands and great aesthetics, or a sense of aesthetics, and can make great hairlines. So, yeah, he is a good one to consider.
I did talk with one of his assistants or whatever. I never met with him, and they're relentless. They do keep. I'm still hearing from that office. Yeah. So I might actually follow up, but yeah, because the other docs I met with have all suggested an FUT first, which and I understand the reasoning behind that, but maybe if I just want to buy myself another 10 years and then just have to buzz it off at 65 or something, and at least I won't have the linear scar. But I do know there's possibilities for scarring with a FUE as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope that helps.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate your information. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for calling.
All right. Take care. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye. Toll free 833-563-4247. That is toll free in North America. And you can call with any call app worldwide, like Skype or whatever else you want to try. I do welcome your calls. I am here to answer your questions. Andy was the guy that just called. He called before I was finished with my monologue, which is fine. I appreciate the call. I wasn't able to finish what I was saying or finish my thought, and I don't remember what it was, but I was going to get to the point where I gotta click this. Nope, hang on a second. There we go. Nope, that's not what I want. That's what I want. I was going to get to the point where I'm going to make the announcement that while tomorrow's show will probably be the same as today as far as me being here answering questions and fielding phone calls, on Thursday I've secured the confirmation for my special guest, which will be Dr. Özlem Bisher. You might know her as Dr. Özlem Bisher. I try to pronounce it in the original Turkish. She's going to be live with us to answer your questions, and I'm very happy about that because I don't have to get up early to do the show just to fit her schedule. She's actually fitting our schedule because she said she'd be happy to do it. So it'll be midnight for her, I think, maybe 1. But she's committed to an hour of our time to answer your questions. So I'm very pleased with that. And as far as I know, it'll be the first interview. It might be the first interview live. Well, definitely the first live interview where she's taking calls anywhere. So yeah, be sure to tune in. That will be Thursday right here on the Hair Transplant channel at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Toll free, 833-563-4247. Give me a call. I'm here to answer your questions. I will jump over to the chat room real quick. While I'm doing that, please hit the like button. Support the channel. Show that you appreciate me being here. I was thinking about it today. It's like I was getting a lot of emails on, for work and some text messages. Things I could be doing. Like, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, middle of my day, and I'm sitting here for 2 hours for you guys. There's a lot I could be doing right now. And taking 2 hours out of my day, in the middle of my day, and then jumping back into my day afterwards is a huge pain in the butt. So I hope you appreciate it. Show it by hitting the like button. I really appreciate that. Let's go to the chat room. HLC 2020, my boy, Cosmo RNA is out tomorrow for the latest Korean newspaper article. That's interesting. I will try to find some time to look into that a bit more. See, do you like to use platelet-rich therapy after the hair transplant? That's from Leonardo Casimiro. Hope I didn't butcher your name. PRP is fine if the protocol is good. I don't like the idea of just, I don't know. It's a good question. My gut on PRP is that it's not necessary, because for decades, successful hair transplant surgery is performed without PRP. Now, there is an argument that the use of PRP after surgery can help with a faster recovery, a reduced chance of a shed, which maybe. I won't dispute that. There's anecdotal evidence on that. Faster regrowth and stronger regrowth, and during the recovery, a revival of native hairs that were also in a state of miniaturization. Now, there's also the probability or the potential that those hairs can also be shocked into a state of telogen. So while you're going through the recovery process from the surgery, you're losing grafts because of the recovery process, which is natural, and you're losing native hair through the shock process that can occur from the surgery alone. And then, if you have PRP, it can potentially induce a telogen on its own and make it that much worse. And with that, we are back on the phone. You're on the main event. What's your name and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
I knew it. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Still fighting the allergy fight. Allergies are really bad here, but other than that, I'm doing well. I can't complain.
Okay. Are you an allergy kind of guy? Like is this a normal thing for you?
Well, it's gotten worse ever since COVID. I'll tell you that much.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. Last spring, I caught COVID just before allergies hit, and then I got like really bad cough, and it lingered. And I went to go see my allergist, and my allergist said, "You know something? You're asthmatic." And I'm like, "I am," and I didn't even know that I was until the same time last year. And then this year, pretty much to repeat performance. I didn't catch COVID this time, but and it just sucked because I was in the throes of it when I had my concert. I managed to make it through, and I don't know if you've been able to see the videos on socials.
I haven't actually.
Able to.
I was thinking you were going to send me a video. I just now remembered it since you brought it up. I've completely forgotten about it. So no, I'm not seeing it.
All right. Well, I'll send it to you. I'll send you the reference, but it's there on my socials. And for what it's worth, it went over well.
Okay.
But it wasn't. Go on.
Hello?
Go on, Joe. Yeah. So, like I said, it went well. It was well received, but I kind of felt personally I could have did a better job if I actually wasn't coughing up a lung. So,
that's beneficial. Yeah, that usually helps.
But I will say that I looked good on the video for myself, and I didn't feel self-conscious about the way I looked.
Good.
And that's worth its weight in gold, I would say.
You could have lost your voice and it still would have been worth its weight in gold to hear that. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks. Yeah, I love hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Okay.
I wanted to call to just let you know that went well. And what else can I tell you? And yeah, I mean, the growth is going. It's interesting. It's like now that I have hair, I'm suddenly, I think we've talked about this before, the whole thing about having good hair days and bad hair days.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you have hair, you can actually have good hair days and bad hair days. When you don't, you really can't, because it's all no hair days, I guess you could say.
Right.
So, that's kind of another little thing that I'm dealing with, which is like I said, it's a good thing overall. I can't complain about
now that you have hair, there's no such thing as a bad hair day. It's all good hair days. It's just maybe not as good as you want it to be. So
exactly,
you're good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First world problems.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know what else I can talk to you about. It's funny. I kind of feel at a loss for subjects because I'm not as focused on my hair as I once was. So I really don't. I really can't talk too much about that. I guess I can kind of sort of let the cat out of the bag a little bit in that I'm still helping out Dr. Cole on the weekends.
Okay.
And I've had a chance to see a lot of different things in my musings. I actually got a chance to see a hair transplant, actually more than one, up close and watch them work from the other side, which is kind of been a really interesting process. And I've also watched how the doctor prepares his PRPs and his CRPs and how the TED works and all of that kind of stuff. So that's really been very educational for me, to basically see how the sausage is made, and also to kind of get an understanding from that side of it.
Yeah, of course. No, good for you. I love seeing this kind of stuff. Like I love going to workshops. I used to love sitting in surgeries just to observe and sometimes assist. When I first started working in clinic, the first thing I wanted to do was sit in the OR and learn how to cut grafts, because I wanted to be able to say that I understand how things work because I've done it, and I wanted to do it so I'd have more of an intimate understanding of how things work, and so. Good for you. I'm glad to hear that. It's important if you're going to be a consultant, Morty, that you understand how the surgery works. So that's good.
Oh yeah. The only question that I would have, and again, you've done this quite a bit more than I have. It has to do with the legal ramifications and the roles and the rule of law. I guess you're probably not going to know that much about New York state law, but you probably know a fair amount about U.S. law.
You can't drink in the OR. I don't think it's illegal, but it's highly frowned upon. No, that's not what you're, no. Okay, sorry. What was the question?
No. It's more a question of who is allowed to do what, and because again we've got you've got people cutting into tissue, you've got handling of tissue, you've got placing of grafts, you've got all of these different things, and in the eyes of the law, who is allowed to do what in the United States of America? Do you need an MD? Go ahead.
That's a great question, but it's not who's allowed to do what in the United States of America. It's who's allowed to do what in each state, because each state is different. Each state has its own specific medical board that regulates this kind of thing. It's not a national or federal issue. So so it's state of New York, state of Georgia, state of Florida, state of wherever wherever a doctor is performing. So there's delegation of duties to qualified, trained persons. That definition is different from one state to the next. Yeah. So I don't know. Okay. I don't know what it would be specifically in New York, but it's probably pretty pretty standard across the board for all the clinics in New York, pretty much doing the same thing as far as delegation of some of the duties for assisting the doctor. But But my question is, like, how often? Like, I was talking to Dr. Cole the other day, and I meant to ask him, how often is he in New York now? He's up there every week, right?
Yeah, no, he has been up here pretty much every week for at least as long as I've known him.
Yeah.
He comes up here very regularly.
Yeah, he's splitting his time pretty much evenly between Georgia and New York, or Atlanta and New York. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. And he will do, meaty surgeries. He won't go to, I don't think I've seen him go to 4 digits up here in terms of number of grafts. But, if he does have a big surgery, he will bring techs with him from his Atlanta office. And he has some techs that he works with here in New York as well. Mm-hmm. Again, it largely depends on the size of the procedure that he's going to tackle.
Of course.
If it's small, he'll just do it himself. If it's, small, meaning, I guess, up to 300, 400, I suppose. Yeah. That's pretty much the way he works. And he's doing everything at that point. But even in the larger, and even in the larger surgeries, he is there 24/7. It's one of the things that I really am very impressed by him. And this is, again, I've heard stories from other people who work with well-known doctors, who are in the States, and some of whom are actually, on the IAHRS, who, again, this is all secondhand information, it's hearsay. So I would suggest no one believe what I'm about to say, because what I'm saying is hearsay. But the degree of involvement isn't as high as what I've seen myself with my own eyes. Namely, when you're getting surgery with Dr. Cole is the person he's got the drill. He's coring the grafts from the donor area. He is creating the recipient sites himself. And he is. Well,
that's pretty standard. Like the doctors are usually making the recipient sites, but it doesn't, like, we're talking about IAHRS. Every doctor will have a varying level of involvement based on just however they've got their team set up. Like, you could also look at Dr. Sharon Keene, IAHRS accepted member, hair transplant mentor doctor down in Phoenix. She's placing all the grafts as well. She's making the incisions, but she's placing the grafts. She's doing the extractions. The only thing the technicians are doing is they're separating and refining under microscopes, and then they're arranging them for her to place back in the scalp herself. Like, she does all the placement.
Interesting.
After she makes the incisions. So that's about as involved as you can get.
Exactly.
On a normal size surgery. If it's a few hundred grafts and the doctor does it himself, that's fantastic. But you also have clinics where the doctor will delegate, where they're making the incisions for the placement, which is one of the two most important aspects of the actual surgery, because when you're making the incision, especially, well, it also depends on the tool that you're making, but that determines the angle and direction of the placement. So if you're making an incision at say a 35-degree angle from the plane of the scalp, and you want it to kind of help to create this directional wave to the right hand side as it's going around the front of the hairline, the tech can't just come in and like stuff it in to where it's going, taking a dog leg to the left. It doesn't work like that. So the doctor's making those incisions. Technicians are coming in and placing them in accordance to how those incisions were made, the angle of direction. So, and then you've got, like, if you look at Dr. Seeger from back in the day, or even what do you call Dr. I'm forgetting his name. Limmer, the Limmer family, who basically introduced the idea of true follicular unit transplantation. I'm not talking strip. I'm talking about the use of microscopes to refine grafts down into their proper units, which, by the way, was shown to increase yield by up to 30%, growth by up to 30%. They weren't. Only thing they were doing was cutting out the strip, and they were gone. See ya. It was their senior technicians that were supervising the dissection and the slivering, dissection, and trimming, and then they're doing stick in place. They'd make an incision with a needle, with a needle, and then the other hand they had a tweezers or a forceps, and they were placing the graft. That's called stick in place.
Gotcha.
That was going. They were leaders of the ISHRS for years. Like they were the grandfathers of the movement, and so and you got involvement levels at various stages between those two extremes. And I mean, look, the industry itself for the past several decades or few decades, that's really been a thing, has been largely technician driven, because doctors can't do it without technicians, and technicians have been the ones that are handling these tiny organs by the thousands, and that are placing them into the scalp, that are manipulating them with a blade under microscopes.
Yeah,
that's standard in the industry, and it has been like for 30 years. So it varies throughout the country, throughout the continent. Include Canada and Mexico, throughout the world. You have various levels of involvement, and in my view, doesn't matter. What matters is the outcome. Is it consistent from one patient to the next? Natural, good growth, and something that the patient can say that they're happy with. Because ultimately, that's the way it's always been, where technicians are involved on various levels. And when you have consistency, it means that your team knows their shit. It's a fine-tuned machine.
Yep.
Day in, day out. And it's not a situation where you got these rotating techs that fly in and fly out, for a couple days at a time. It's the old school model where you got techs that have worked at the same clinic for 10 years or longer.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is with the techs that Dr. Cole works with. I mean, the techs that I've seen him fly in are the same ones that worked on me. And they're very bright. They've been with the doctor in double-digit years. As far as placement, Dr. Cole does review. Like, he will look over ahead, and see, because the thing of it is that even if, and I had this conversation with him, even if you make an incision that's at the correct angle, the placement of the graft is still important. You can place a graft in, quote, upside down, because grafts have a curve to them. And so you want to make sure that curve is curving in the right direction with respect to the scalp. You don't want to make sure that it's curving to the left or to the right if it's supposed to be curving up or curving down, depending on the flow of the adjacent hairs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's that's one part of it. The other part of it has to do with
the incision doesn't actually dictate the rotation of the placement of the graft. So,
correct.
So that's an ancillary detail that better clinics understand, other clinics don't. Yeah,
but that is something that he will look over. He'll look over and he'll say, "Oh, that one's an upside down," and he'll take it out. The other thing has to do with depth. You don't want the graft to be in too deep, or the placement to be too shallow, because that will affect whether you're going to get cobblestoning, whether you're going to get pitting. It has to do with how deep within the flesh you put the graft, and some of that is going to be a function of the site. But within a site, the placer has to make sure to place at the right depth as well. And if the graft is forced inward, what will happen is that the graft, instead of going down, it'll dogleg, because it'll hit the bottom of the incision and it'll curve in it'll curve inward if you shove it in, for example.
And okay,
so yeah, I mean,
and you've obviously been reading about this and talking. So, what happens? What happens when you stuff it in too much? What happens to the hair?
Oh, I mean, you could damage it for one thing. For another, it could grow out in the wrong direction.
There's a very specific reference to the graft when it's stuffed in. It only happens when it's stuffed in too much. You never see this in any other scenario.
All right. Well, you tell me, Mr. Expert, because I don't know.
It's where you get J hairs.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's curving and that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, right on. Okay. Well, you get a passing grade for your examination, your oral examination. You are on your way to being a fully qualified hair restoration consultant for the Cole Clinic. Congratulations.
You're funny.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
What I try to do when I speak to people mostly is I just tell them about what's happened to me, and I try my best to relate to the patient. And 9 times out of 10, the people that I've been talking to, they're first timers and they're nervous, and Dr. Cole's been pretty good about making sure that people, they're on medical therapy and that they're advised to be on medical therapy. I talk about the medical therapy that I'm on.
Is this an ad for Dr. Cole's ad for clinic?
No, not at all. No, I'm just running out of things to talk about, Joe.
You're sitting here.
I can talk about something else.
Dr. Cole's very compassionate, and he's talking to the. It's like we know this.
Oh, I apologize.
No need to. After that first phone call, you're one of the guys that you hang up, and me and Spencer are like, okay, tell the doctor we said hi. That kind of thing, because we didn't think that you're listening to us, but you did, and I'm proud of you, and I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you, Joe, and I'm grateful that I found you guys. I don't know how many times I've said this, so I'll say it again for those people who aren't listening. Lord knows where I would be if I didn't find you guys. I probably would have gone to Pakistan or to India or to Turkey to get a sub $10,000 procedure and probably be regretting it, like a lot of people who are walking around these days.
Or maybe not. Like you might have gotten a fine result somewhere else as well. But you made your choice, and it's turned out to be fantastic. And the number one thing is it's natural as hell, and you're getting great coverage. So you're on the right track. You're almost to the finish line, my friend. And I look forward to seeing that ticker tape parade.
All right, boss. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks for calling, my friend. Take care.
Anytime.
Bye-bye. And we got another call. I think I know who this is. You're on the main event. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
You're almost. Is this Joseph?
It is. Caller, can you please turn down the speaker in the background? I'm hearing myself.
Wait a second. I think I'm on some sort of delay. Hold on, please.
These amateurs, I'm telling you.
I had a call, and by the way, congratulations. The show looks great. You look very bloated today, by the way. So whatever you're eating, well done.
It's the camera further away. I can't use my main camera because for some reason I'm getting this wobbling, breathing focus thing going on, and I'm not sure why. So it's
Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Listen, I had to call in. I love hearing Morty. I love hearing his relatively newfound expertise. He has a lot of great questions.
He does. Well, he's got a lot of great comments because I'm sitting here listening. I was like, did he just get through reading like a hair transplant glossary or something? Because he's rattling off all these great facts. It's like, has he been studying for an exam? And that's where I'm thinking. It's like I think he's studying to be a consultant.
He might be. But what I have to let your listeners know, and I have to let Morty know is, when you are putting out information for public consumption, you really have to, get all sides of the history and the story, and before you make, really definitive commentary. And I think, and it's great. Listen, he's learning from absolutely one of the best.
Oh yeah.
But this is the practice of medicine. Everyone kind of practices it slightly differently, and. Like kind of the true history of how FUE evolved, really is kind of, let's just say, it's kind of told differently by each of the elders in this space.
Of course.
And I'm not sure, just, the way that Morty is describing things, that he's really doing any further due diligence outside of his immediate sphere. How's that for being diplomatic? That's
very diplomatic. And I can say from experience, I understand because there's a certain bubble that we exist in.
And I told you, I said, dude, you're in a bubble. This is 15 years ago.
Was it 15? Yeah, give or take. Yeah,
maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. Sorry, you can correct me.
No. Well, you're being diplomatic again. You didn't say I'm being in a bubble. You said I'm being a dipshit. I think was the specific verbiage.
I also stated that once you get out of that sphere and once you start to, go into other people's practices and speak to other people's patients and see them one-on-one, you're going to realize that the information that you're getting is pretty much one-sided. And you're not getting the full picture to be able to guide patients in, the most honest and the safest direction.
Well, the interesting thing for me was when I won't forget the year. It was 2010 when I decided that I can no longer trash FUE as a procedure. And this is, for the viewers watching or and then listeners, wherever you're hearing this, for many years, I was working at a clinic that was arguably the best FUT clinic on the planet. And they were very slow to adopt into the FUE mindset. And why should they? Because the FUT that they were putting out was so great. But
what do you mean, slow to adopt? I thought it was more like, at least this is what I was told. Well, I will retire before I do FUE.
Yeah, it was more like pushed over the cliff into FUE without any sort of choice in the matter. But there was an argument to be made that FUE was inferior, but it got to the point where I could no longer say that. And up until 2010, the idea that FUE was so inferior is because of all the FUE horror shows that were walking through our door. And so that actually molded our opinion, or my opinion at the time, and it makes sense, like if that's all that you're seeing. But when you think about it logically, why would the happy patients be coming through your door? They're not in need of any more surgery. And I didn't realize 100%. That until later on. Like it didn't actually hit me until later on. But 2010 onward, it hit me. There's too many good results out there for us to say, or for me to say, that it is an inferior procedure. And that's when I realized, you know what? I think this theory that it's going to take over has got legs. And here we are. It has.
And it has.
And it has.
And I think that's, testament to your story, is testament to the reality that when you are kind of, working in the industry, you're working for a particular clinic, you're getting their side of the story. And honestly, it's beyond the money. You kind of look up to these guys, because you're seeing them do such great work and treating their patients so well.
Oh, yeah.
So you take their word as a gospel, as opposed to, maybe this isn't necessarily reality in everybody's hands.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more than one way to skin a cat. Morty asked a very interesting question, and I thought it kind of, speaks to the naivete of the entire field, because doctors don't even know this. And I'm not going to get too specific, but when he asked about the legality of who could actually perform what aspects of surgery, and you brought up delegation and all that stuff, and you were spot on when you said, listen, this industry has been built on delegation. When you brought up Seeger and Limmer and the whole stick and play situation, if it wasn't for Bobby Limmer and if it wasn't for David Seeger, we'd still be doing plugs today. And then Bill Rasmussen took the reins and really started to promote it and advertise it heavily in the U.S. with Bob Bernstein. But these guys were barely involved in the surgery at all. Yeah. But they had a tremendous and very gifted team.
Well, that's why David Seeger in the mid '90s was able to perform 6 surgeries a day, because he was just all he had to do was take out the strip. That's it.
And that's why Dr. Alan Feller decided to have his first hair transplant, and when David Seeger applied to the IHS, one of the doctors he gave me as a reference was Alan Feller. That's how I met Alan.
Yeah.
So Alan Feller's first transplant completely changed his life. And he did the research, and he decided not to go to anybody in the U.S., but to go to David Seeger, knowing that his girls, in quotes, technicians, were going to be doing most of the surgery.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty telling. But as far as legality, I think this is important. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but there really is no true legal parameters. Now, there are a couple of medical boards in the U.S. who've made position statements based on, some interesting inquiries. But in general, if you look at the scope of practice of most people performing hair transplant surgery, I'm not talking about physicians, but most of the people in the industry, if they have any scope of practice, a license of any degree, or a certificate, this type of surgery in any capacity is not within their scope of practice. And that includes what you said, handling grafts, and placing live organs into people's scalps. So there really is no legal parameter set yet, or are none.
Yeah.
And doctors are just kind of like regurgitating a few state medical boards making certain position statements, but there's been nothing written in stone about what's legal and what's illegal. So that's a misnomer. And any doctors who are claiming this is legal and that's illegal, they don't know what they're talking about. And I just want Morty to know that.
Well, and I think
your listeners,
and the listeners, I think also it would be valuable for them to understand that as well. So basically, what Spencer Coburn, and you can say this to your doctor, what Spencer Coburn's saying is that most doctors are practicing illegally.
No, I am not.
You heard it right here on the main event. From Spencer Coburn.
Oh my God, Joseph, how dare you? No, here's the thing. There are no legal I'm choking.
Yeah.
On water. There are no legal parameters set.
Yeah, I know.
A position statement from a specific state medical board, unless there was something actually went to trial and there was a legal position made by a state's attorney, there's no legal parameter set. And it doesn't matter what organizations might say, whatever it is, it's just position statements are not the law.
Right.
So, take that for what it's worth. So when Morty asks what's legal, what's considered legal, what's considered illegal, that's a slippery slope.
It is very slippery because I think that when statements are made about one way or the other, and they start getting carried forward by others, then that can lead to more misunderstanding. It can lead to more negativity. I won't go any further than that. But
here's what it leads to. It leads to, in the end, what happened in Canada, where patients are going to be the ones who are suffering the most.
Oh, yeah.
Not the practices who are having to scramble to find physicians to do their surgeries or PAs. It's the patients who are going to be working, who are going to be paying money to have people train on their heads, as opposed to people who have been doing this for a decade or more.
Yeah, and just so people listening and watching understand, there's some provinces in Canada that have taken the what they call the College of Medicine. It's not the medical board. It's different here, where they have made position statements where it's basically no longer possible for technicians to be performing surgery the way that has been the industry standard for the past 40 years. So you have some very good clinics that are scrambling to retrain people that have a piece of paper that says that they are qualified when they're not qualified. But what this does is it's opened the gates for all kinds of medical personnel to get into the industry when they have no business being in the industry.
So there are PAs who are going to be able to open up their own clinics, and who already are.
Yeah.
There are PAs and, RNs and whatever else they call them up in your part of the woods that are being hired, essentially trained for a week or two, and then let loose on unwitting patients or unknowing patients.
So basically, more carnage is being carried out in Canada than ever before, simply because of politics.
So if anybody comes on the air or whatever and says, someone is performing or delegating to technicians illegally, that's a misnomer here in the States.
Yeah.
And frankly, your question as a consumer should be, how long have these technicians been working with this particular physician? How many years in the saddle in the trenches do they have?
Mm-hmm.
And can I see the work that they've actually performed?
Yeah. Exactly.
Those are the questions.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I just, I know Morty's an expert now, but he's still got to be schooled a little bit.
Well, I'm just glad you were listening to call in and spread the gospel, because it's hair transplant history. The industry, anyway, is interesting to me, and it was actually a joy for me to bring up that the Limmer and the Seeger points, because that's stuff that no one knows. No one knows that stuff today. Even most doctors don't know that stuff because they weren't even around. This is stuff that's lost to history, but it's important because it's very relevant to today and what's going on.
Look, when I contacted Alan Feller as a, as a reference essentially for David Seeger to be a member of the IHRS, when Alan Feller asked me what the parameters were, I said this on our show, The Bald Truth, which is Fridays at 3 p.m., by the way.
Get it?
Yeah, he actually told me that microscopes were bullshit and that it's really just a marketing tool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then you could apply at some other point if you'd ever decide to get microscopes and start to utilize them. 6 months later, and this is all in my view, and it's just the way the entire industry has evolved through financial pressures and feeling that they needed to move in a certain direction in order to compete. Alan Feller called my radio show on WOR Radio in New York, and just to let me know that he's a convert, that he listened to me, he got several microscopes, he trained his staff, and now he's seeing the results come in, and that I was right. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with me. This is what Bobby Limmer said in 1988.
Yeah.
And the doctor that you decided to have a hair transplant from is doing. His entire staff were using stereo microscopic dissection in order to give you the hair transplant that you're walking around with.
Which was a pretty good hair transplant.
It was a great hair transplant. His first one, I forgot who he went to, but I think this may have been the second one. But yeah, I mean, he had a really. And I could be wrong about that.
He went to Dr. Yu, I believe.
Yeah, so that's where the initial problem lies.
Yes, he went to Dr. Yu and then went to Seeger and got it cleaned up and looked pretty good. Looked really good, actually.
It looked excellent, and now it looks great.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is the history, guys. Who are listening, you need to know the reality of what's going on, and don't get hung up on what's legal, what's illegal, because at least here in the United States, no one really knows. The industry has been run a very specific way, and technicians have been the driving force, and the only reason why hair transplant surgery has evolved to the level that it has.
Yep, 100%.
All right, brother.
All right. Good call. Thanks for calling, brother.
Take it easy.
See you later, man. Bye. Toll free, 1-833-563-4247. Someone from the 213 area code was trying to call through. You can call back, as well as anyone else can as well. It is toll free North America, and you can call worldwide using any call app of choice. Boy, we went off in a different direction there. I was going to talk about something else. I forgot. Now it's just kind of left my mind, but I will check the chat room here. 23 likes. I'd like to see those likes go up. Please show me you appreciate the show. Let's see. FUE is an evolving fad similar to the electric car. Really? I would have said the same thing 14 years ago. But yeah, that's not the case now. What else we got here? Any questions? Let's see. Sorry about my type errors. Lots of comments going on. It's nice to see like side discussions going on in the chat room. I appreciate that. I mean, there's like groupies here where you guys are just having discussions amongst yourselves. That's actually kind of cool. Saint Louis Celine says, "Hi Joe, is there ever a situation in which a hair transplant is apropos to medication to correct a particular area of hair loss that is predestined to experience loss, particularly temples and hairline?" Let me read that again. Is there ever a situation where a hair transplant is appropriate to medication? Okay. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. I'm going to move on. Sorry, I'm not sure I understand you. So I don't want to give you a false answer because I don't understand your question. Let's see. Looking for more questions. You guys can call in. 833-563-4247 while I'm looking for questions to answer. When does majority of patients shed after transplant? I've not seen a shed. It's been a month. What was your shedding history in your 13 hair transplants? I've not had 13 hair transplants. I've had 10. Thank you very much. You're thinking of Spencer Stevenson. Do I look like Spencer? Do I sound like Spencer Stevenson? He sounds a bit like this. Sorry, man. That was a bad. Okay, it doesn't sound that bad, but yeah, it's much different. He's also on a different continent. Yeah, but shedding does not happen for all patients. Happens for most patients, but if it's not happening for you, it's for one of two reasons. One, because you're lucky and your grafts were able to withstand the onslaught of trauma from the surgery, or two, you're being too careful with your grafts when you wash your hair, if you're even washing your hair. I've seen this before where a patient will have surgery and they're so scared of damaging something that they don't touch it at all. They might pour water on it, but they don't really engage physically using their fingertips because they're too scared to. And I understand that, but that's a very valid reason why you might not be shedding. So if it's that reason, like if you're not touching your scalp, then get busy washing your scalp normally, normal pressure, normal water pressure, normal fingertip pressure, and get those hairs out of your scalp. If you are washing normally, then consider yourself lucky, but you still have a few weeks to go before that might kick in. Okay? So I hope that helps. Let's see, more questions. If you don't shed, how quickly can you judge the result? How long does it take for your hair to grow? And what length constitutes a full result? Like, are you going to be a head buzzer shaver? Then immediately. If you want to have long locks of hair, then probably a couple of years. If you want to have a normal male, what's considered to be an average hairstyle, then 9 months to 12 months. Lars Rye Jeppesen, I think my question got removed. It hasn't been removed unless you had a bunch of curse words in there. It would have been censored by YouTube, I think. In your opinion, am I too old to consider a hair transplant? I'm 54, naturally thinning, but still a full head. Considering getting my hairline done, I'm on dutasteride, oral minoxidil for 5+ years. Getting your hairline done, if you're naturally thinning, it means you're also receding. So, no, I mean, I've had patients that were 80 years old, and they're super happy with the result, with having more hair. I'll never forget, there's this one guy who's probably about... I'll get to that. I got a call. Hey, you're on the main event. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello?
Hello, Joe?
Yes, hello. Who's this?
Oh, hi, this is Ryan. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Los Angeles.
All right, Los Angeles, the city of angels. Yes.
Yes.
What's up,
Sorry,
buddy?
I know I called like 6 times to say the end
That's
of the
okay.
show, but
That's okay.
I was trying to get through, man. The wait time is so short. It's like it immediately goes to a voicemail. So like, oh,
Well, because
shit, man, I gotta get
because I'm hanging up on you. That's why.
oh, okay.
Yeah, because I haven't figured out how to. I might actually have to switch providers because I'm having trouble figuring out how to turn off the ringer so that it doesn't come through in the live stream because it's annoying as shit. It's
Not bad.
it's loud. And I actually talked to the provider, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you just do this, this, and this," and I did it, and it didn't fix it. So I might have to change providers to get that done.
Well,
but anyway,
either way, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I love your show, and I've been watching you and Spencer for a while, and it's invaluable. I think just from getting the information on all this stuff and making a decision that is so difficult to make. I think I've spoken to you once before on The Bald Truth. I think it was The Bald Truth, right? Is that the name on Friday? Yeah.
Yeah. That little thing that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, that little thing that you guys have been doing for a while. But I had a question.
Hair talk. Was it hair talk? Was it hair talk?
Yeah, hair talk.
Hair talk.
Hair talk.
We'll talk about hair.
Great
Discuss.
accent, man. You should work on that. I could see some films for you. It'd be great. But I had a question because I remember you've mentioned this a few times over. I'm sure you've mentioned a lot of times about how if you could go back that you wouldn't get a transplant. I'm 41 years old. I've been losing my hair for God. I mean, I started losing my hair when I was like 18. But I've been on and off finasteride and minoxidil. Now this time I think I've been on finasteride for 8 years, and I'm probably like a Norwood 3. I've been able to hold on to it. But I'm getting to that point, man, like I'm like, oh, I mean, I can use Topic. I can do that stuff, but I'm getting to that point where I'm really thinking, should I do this? And I called Dr. Cole and I got a quote, and the quote was high. And I thought about, going down to Mexico. I think there's a great guy in Mexico that's right on the border that I researched. And
oh God,
I don't know, man. I mean, I think,
yeah,
it's that thing. It's like, am I really going to do this? Like, am I going to do it? And, am I going to turn out like Conor McGregor, who, this guy's worth $500 million and he gets this terrible transplant, or he's got and you just go, geez. Or are we, should I wait for more drugs? Is this, we've always been saying that it's 5 years around the corner, 10 years around the corner, 2 years around the corner.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Are you in the biz?
Yeah, I'm in the phone business.
Yeah. I can hear. I've talked to so many of you guys. It's like I can hear in your tone. I can hear the pressure that you're under from the people you work with, from the events that you got to go to, and just the eyeballs that you think are always on you, because I can hear it in your voice.
Mm.
And by the way, I did want to be a voiceover artist at one point. So let me ask you this: you've been taking on and off medications, finasteride, the normal story. What has that been doing for you, or not been doing for you? Like you're losing ground, but why is that? Have you not been consistent? Have you been experimenting with different dosages? Have you been taking generic versus name brand? Like give me some specifics here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been taking it currently, I think, for 3 years consistently. I had taken it 10 years ago and been sort of off and on, always generic, never used, always finasteride. I think I'm on, it's a 0.5 milligram or 0.25 milligrams. I think it's a 2 milligram pill, or it's a 5 milligram pill. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact, but I cut it into fours.
Yeah, it's 5 milligram. You cut it into quarters.
Yeah. I use minoxidil. I use turmeric. I use saw palmetto. I take those orally. I've been consistent with the pills for a while now, and it does seem that I'm losing ground. And, that could also just be from sheds, but I am seeing the bald spot in the back come back for a while, and the front is getting thinner. And I don't know if that's just, the fact that I'm using a generic, or maybe I should choose durasteride. or what. But
well,
yeah.
So what I think you should do before, and I'm not a doctor,
Sure.
but before you consider pulling the surgical trigger, nothing's worse than someone working in Hollywood with a bad hair transplant.
Yeah,
okay.
True. Very good point, sir.
So
very good point.
You don't want to be the next Nick Cage, all right?
Yeah.
So look, you said something. You said something that kind of made me chuckle, but not in a good way. I heard about another guy across the border in Mexico that's supposed to be pretty good.
I don't. Yeah, I don't need some random guy. But I did research on it. I can't write. I don't have his name in front of me. I probably wrote it down. I'm sorry.
Let me stop you. There's no one good in Mexico.
Okay.
In my view, there's no one good in Mexico right now.
Okay.
There is a. Okay, I take that back. There is a doctor I know. I've met him a few times, and he's based in. He's from Mexico, but he's primarily working out of Spain. He does have a clinic that he's either opening or has opened in Mexico City, and he's really good.
Okay.
There's room for improvement, but he's really good, and I think that if he's got a little bit of an evolution that he could move into, but he would be the best in Mexico by far if he were to. Like I said, he might be there now. So if he's there now, then he's by far the best in Mexico. But I'm not going to talk about him.
Okay. Yeah, the only guy, the guy I just found his name. It's Louis Nader was the guy.
Yeah, I know. I already knew who you're talking about. Like.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. We don't talk about.
Yeah. It was either him or I was hoping it wouldn't be one of these places in Tijuana where you can pick up flyers that are, littering a gas station parking lot because they throw them around, right? So, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get off the generic, stay the course for a year with name brand, and find an IAHRS accepted member and talk to them about maybe adding oral minoxidil.
Okay.
Now, I don't think that you should do that for at least 6 months because you want actually not even for a year, because you want to see if Proscar alone can stabilize you. I'm a big believer in not doing multiple treatments at once, because if something's working, you don't know what the hell it is. Like you're already taking multiple treatments right now. Like you're taking oral saw palmetto. Is that what you said?
Yeah, oral saw palmetto, turmeric, and finasteride.
Yeah,
and then I use minoxidil. Yeah,
and the saw palmetto. How much are you taking?
I can grab the bottle right now.
I ask because I guess that it's probably not enough to make any difference. Which is usually the case. You have to have a lot of saw palmetto to make a difference.
To do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's let me see right here. It's saw palmetto with pumpkin seed oil extract.
Oh God.
Take 2 soft gels twice daily with food. 90 soft gels. What is the? Let's see. Saw palmetto 160 milligrams. Pumpkin seed 1 gram.
Yeah.
Looks like the serving size 2 soft gels. Yeah.
So, I would. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying to stop taking it, because if it is giving you any sort of benefit and you stop cold turkey, it could screw things up for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of, like, if someone wants to ask me should they start taking it, I'd say, oh hell no. Don't get messed up in that. You already are. You kind of, let that devil loose on your shoulder. It's there. So you're kind of stuck with it. You can titrate off over time and just stick with Proscar if you want to do the 5 milligrams still, and see how that works out for a year, or stick with it, like or stay on it and see if just changing, actually, that's probably the best thing, so that you're still maintaining consistency with your intake and just changing one thing. Just switch out from generic to name brand on the finasteride and keep everything else going the same, and see how that works for you for a year.
Okay. Is there a reason why you don't? I mean, I'm sure you've spoken about this, but you can give me the cliff notes on the saw palmetto and the pumpkin seed oil and the.
Because you
feel like it's just a waste of money, or do you
pumpkin
feel like
seed oil is complete horseshit. It's like, seriously, like if there was anything to it, you'd see guys, raiding pumpkin patches. And I mean, come on, it's
boiling pumpkin seed.
Yeah, exactly.
Killing pumpkins and boiling them down.
The bro science would be strong with the pumpkin seed thieves. But even if, just playing devil's advocate, let's say that it's effective, you don't know where this shit's coming from. What safeguards are there to ensure that it's the same thing each and every time? What safeguards are there to ensure that it's even what they're claiming it is? Instead of saw palmetto, what's to make sure it's not sawdust?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the same thing with your turmeric. Like, I'm a big believer in turmeric, and for the anti-inflammation properties of it, I really am. But are you getting it from a reliable source? Because there are reports, like, I've not heard of this in the States, but in some places where they're actually thieves or scam artists are actually replacing the turmeric with rust shavings, because it looks the same, man. Or iron shavings. Excuse me, iron shavings, because when it's exposed to oxygen, it turns orange. Rust.
Yeah.
they'll make these little capsules full of iron ore rust, and you think you're taking turmeric, and you're actually definitely not. So you just don't know. Like, the turmeric is fine, but you don't know the consistency of these products. There's nothing regulating that, because they're sorry, I keep adjusting my microphone, my boom arm. There's really no regulation on that, like there is with prescription medication, and even that's kind of questionable in some cases. But I would, anyone asking about that stuff, I think it's, number one, it's you got to take a lot of, like, saw palmetto for it to be effective. But number two, the consistency, the source, like, all these are question marks, unless you really do your research and you've invested the time and the money, because it's going to be more expensive to get it from really reliable sources that have legit product.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you feel that, and with the generic versus the name brand ProScar, do you feel like there is some sort of kind of discrepancy in the potency of that?
Well, I know there is, because there are documentaries. I think 60 Minutes did a documentary on this, but even before that came out, I knew that there was an issue, because the first time I started to see variation in efficacy was when I had a patient call me up from San Diego. I'll never forget this. He had a great result on ProScar. He was taking ProScar 5 milligrams for a couple of years, had a great turnaround, had a surgery as well. But then a couple of years after that, he called me up. He's like, the very first time I heard this phrase, my ProScar stopped working. Like, how does it stop working? I've never heard of that before. It doesn't just stop working. And so he explained it to me, and I'm sitting there on the phone. I was on the phone with him for like 45 minutes, racking my brain trying to figure out what's going on. And then it hit me. It's like, did you maybe get this from a different resource?
Yeah.
Like where are you getting this from? He goes, I'm getting it online from a place. He showed me, and it actually happened to be an online pharmacy based down the street from where I am in Canada. In a place called Surrey. But it wasn't actually a pharmacy in Surrey. It was just a phone number, and they were acting as agents for a place out of India. So yeah. But the problem, or the situation that I realized was going on was he went from name brand to generic. And his name brand he was getting from a brick and mortar, he's like a CVS or a Walgreens. And then he went online and some generic that he knew nothing about. And he lost all of his gains from medication. The transplant was fine, but he lost all of his native hair. Not all, but like a significant portion of it. I told him this. I said, look, throw it in the garbage, get a new script for Proscar, go back to your CVS, call me in 6 months. It came back, or it was on its way to coming back because he went back on name brand. Now, that was my first exposure to this. Then I started researching it and digging into it, and I found out the FDA regulates all medications coming into the states, not just those that are made into the states. But the problem is when they go to these places where they're manufactured to inspect them, it's not a pop inspection. They announce it like months in advance.
So they can plan it, yeah.
And are the standards the same consistently throughout the year as opposed to just when officials show up? Is the vat being shared? Is it being cleaned out properly before another batch of some other medications being made? This is all legitimate questions. And then I was talking to an actual pharmacist who owned a chain of pharmacies in Canada. He came in for consultation, and I brought this up, and he said, "You're absolutely right." He said, generics do not have the same requirements to be considered bioequivalent. And he gave me an example of, I forgot the medication. I want to say Lipitor. It might not have been Lipitor. It was a very popular medication for, I think, plaque buildup, cardiac plaque buildup. Might have been Lipitor. And he said that it had like 37 patents or 36 patents before it was released, and the generic equivalents were only required to meet 13 of those patents.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the documentary came out, or not documentary, but the 60 Minutes thing came out, and it's just like at this point it's common sense. Like there's too much anecdotal evidence and actual evidence to show that it's just not the same. It can be fine. And this isn't to discredit patients that have had fine outcomes on generic. Like generics are very common and a lot of times they're very effective. Most of the times they're very effective. But there's another study also. I forgot. There are actually some studies out there. It's too vague. It's popping in my head. I can't remember the exact details on it. Anyway, evidence is there. I'm a brand whore. There's a reason why. Some people are fine on generics, and I completely accept that. And I would never tell them that they're not. I would never try to convince them they're not. But when there's issues, or when it doesn't seem to be as effective, or someone says my finasteride stopped working, then those are red flags for me. That's when I start talking about this issue.
That's fascinating. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, and I think that it's, obviously, I've been researching the amount of time that I've spent, research, I'm sure you have, on your life about your hair. It feels like you could have built 4 businesses and became the next Jeff Bezos, because it's crazy how much time and energy comes into this conundrum, which is okay, how do I know if I'm taking this at the right time? How long do I have to wait to the next thing? Should I add this? Do I want to do this?
Dude, but I would be a successful voiceover artist if I didn't spend all the time I did.
You should do it. You should still do it, man.
Shit.
You still do. You've got a great voice.
Yeah, whatever. I don't have time.
Yeah, but you can't. But yeah, it's just it's so difficult. So I'll do that. I'll switch over. I'll tell my doctor now. I mean, I've had this for a while, and it's just, I hope that it improves. But if I don't, where do you guys think that we're gonna? I mean, I know this is a much larger question, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. So I'm sure there's more people wanting to call in, but yeah,
the lineup is out the door.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, how much more time do you feel like we have until this thing is going to be either done by drugs, or we're going to perfect hair cloning, or, you know, do you feel like we're still 25 years off? Do you feel like there's an incentive for them to even do this? Or do you think it's like, you know, it's going to happen real soon?
There is a huge incentive for them to do this, but it's just a matter of making it work. I mean, the incentive is money.
Yeah.
And look, there's some companies out there that have been getting some relatively speaking serious angel money, like Stimson Therapeutics. At one point, I don't know if it's still the case, but they received the largest angel funding of any organization researching not cloning but hair multiplication, where it's through injectables. It triggers hair regrowth. It was $25 million at one point, and that was a couple years ago. They've probably gotten more since. Actually, I know they've gotten more since, and there's probably, I think, Hair Loss Cure 2020 in the chat room will be able to correct me on that, give me more details. This is his area of expertise, but there is at least one other company I believe might have gotten more angel money, but I'm not sure. But, you know, 25 million is actually not a lot of money, but, you know, it's promising when you see that much in investment for hair research, because it's a lot more than what was ever done before, which means that there's more interest in it. It's probably on the radar of angel investment firms now because of the potential return, which would be huge. It would be massive.
Yeah.
But it's still not something I think is going to happen in the next 10 years. Like we'll have something. Don't misunderstand. We will have something. But everything I've seen so far, as far as what's coming out, is really no more effective than a good response to finasteride. Now, there is a new product coming out tomorrow, apparently, called Cosma RNA, which is being released as almost what's called a cosmeceutical, which is not a prescription medication because there's too many barriers and hurdles to jump over, including lots of money for FDA approval. So they're taking the vitamin route, which is not regulated, which is much more loosely not regulated, but just more, we'll say more loosely regulated, less safe is one way to put it. That's the route they're taking. A lot easier to get a product to market, and we'll see what it does. I think it's a lotion or some sort of cream. I'm not sure. But we'll see. We'll see what that's going to do. It's there are things coming out. It's just I don't see anything that's going to be anything better than finasteride for the short-term future.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time, Joe. And as always, you know, I think that what you guys are doing on both shows and the time that you take to do this, and, you know, the slaphead curse hurts us all, man. It hurts us all. And, you know, especially if somebody's been dealing as long as I have and as long as you have, it's debilitating, man. You know, it's something
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Especially in your situation
other men's hair at restaurants.
you're having more issues with the concealers. As you lose more, it's more and more difficult. I get it. But you know, see what this change does. And
okay, thank you.
Keep me updated. Call me anytime, okay?
I will. Thank you so much, Joe. Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too, buddy. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that is 833-563-4247. Give me a call here on the main event. I can answer your questions, and we'll talk hair loss. We'll talk surgery. We've got another 20 minutes left before I hang it up for the day. And I think I just missed a call. Did I? No, I didn't. Let's see what's going on in the chat room. Neil Adams asks, what strength of oral minoxidil do I need to take? Whatever that your doctor prescribes for you. Let's see. Lars Ray Jeppesen I was answering your question. Naturally thinning, but still full of head, full head of hair, 54 years old. Considering getting your hairline done. You're currently on dutasteride and oral minoxidil for 5+ years. Yeah, I mean, are you too old? No. I think I've seen this before. I've had patients that were 80 years old. Oh, I was about to tell a story about a 75-year-old. He just lost his wife. She just died like a week before. And he was devastated. And he was still mourning, and he came in for a consultation. And he was like this really nice old guy. And I told him, like, yeah, it's possible, but I didn't ask the obvious question, like, but do you really need it? I mean, look at you, you're 75. I didn't say that. Long story short, he went through his mourning process, and he came back for another consultation several months later, feeling better about himself, but he decided it was time for him to get back on the world in the dating scene, so he wanted a hair transplant. So counseled him, education, blah, blah, blah. He wound up having surgery, and changed his life. Super, super happy. Let's take this call. Hey, you're on the main event. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Joe. It's the Norwood Shaman calling again.
The Norwood Shaman. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
Good. Your volume's a bit low. Are you?
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, well, that's much better. You're on speaker, weren't you?
Okay. No, actually, my microphone was a little bit away from my mouth.
That'll do it. What's up, buddy?
So I was listening to Morty's call before, and he made a statement that he would probably have went to Pakistan or India or Turkey to get a hair transplant because...
Oh, Morty.
Exactly, because, and he said something about underpriced clinics, ended in a negative manner, which makes me think that a lot of people attach low-priced clinics to hair mills and bad results and stuff like that.
Of course they do.
But
of course they do. That's the way that it's presented by the not cheap clinics. That's the way it's presented by some YouTubers, and I'm guilty of it myself from time to time. I try not to, because I know there's some great clinics that are cheap. Really, like I work with one that's pretty cheap, relatively speaking. But I know there's some really good ones that they're cheaper. But yeah,
exactly.
it's understandable. I mean, it's just the way that it's bannered about. But I get it. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you compare the average salary in Turkey, which according to Google is about 500 USD, and that means that if a clinic in Turkey offers a hair transplant for 3,000 grafts for $3,000, which is pretty common, right?
That's pretty high, actually. Now they're doing 5,000 grafts, or as many as they can. Max sessions is how they usually refer to it, for about 2,000.
Okay, 2,000.
And less depends on the clinic, but yeah.
Okay, but the popular ones that many people go to charges about somewhere around $2,500 to $3,000, and that is about 4 to 5 times or 6 times even times the average salary in Turkey. But if you compare to the U.S., where the average salary is about $5,000 to $6,000 US per month, and the cost for 3,000 grafts is about maybe 16,000, maybe up to 18. Am I wrong?
A 3,000 graft surgery would be roughly between $9,000 and $10,000 on up to 15 to 18. Yeah, depending on the clinic,
okay.
But that's probably the average realm. Usually about 15,000, I think, is about the average.
Yeah, so that is about 3 times the average salary in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
So actually, it is more expensive for a Turkish citizen to get a hair transplant in Turkey, in general, than it is to get it in the U.S.
Well, hang on. Let me stop you right there. The prices that you're referring to, those are the prices that you see advertised for international patients. When you're in Turkey, if you're Turkish, living in Turkey, it's far cheaper. In areas of southeastern Turkey, close to Syria, where you would walk the streets and they had kids pulling people out of the walkways into a clinic. Just grab them by the hand and say, come get a hair transplant.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I remember actually seeing an ad in northwestern Syria, like right there in the fun zone. 350 euros for a hair transplant. This is 2015. So those places are all over the place. We don't see them because they're not advertising for international clientele. It's just local. It's the local kind of business. So when you walk into most restaurants, you'll see waiters walking around, and they take, like a decent restaurant, they take service pretty seriously. I can appreciate that. First time I was in a nice Turkish restaurant, I was looking at all the waiters with bad hair transplants. They're everywhere. These were not the type of hair transplants that you would see on Instagram. These are the type of hair transplants that you would see in repair before and after images in North America from plug jobs. They weren't plug jobs, but it was that kind of thing. Like really bad design, bad spacing in between, very thick pluggy grafts. And they were happy with it because they had enough to comb and spray in place so they looked a bit more professional. It's crazy. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I understand where you get that from, but the underbelly is darker than what you see.
Okay, but if you specifically talk about the most popular clinics in Turkey, so some of which you are connected to, if you would only take them and apply what I just said, would that still be the same? Like, do these popular clinics offer the cheaper prices to Turkish citizens as well?
That's a great question. I was talking to a patient last June who was Turkish, and I was asking him about my first question was about the differences in treatment. So I wasn't asking him to compare because he wouldn't know since he's not coming in from outside of Turkey. He lived like 5 minutes from the clinic. But I asked him specific questions about how he was treated. And I didn't ask leading questions. These are very open-ended questions, asking how he felt he was treated. How did you feel when you came in as far as the attention you were given, things like that. And he was like, yeah, they bent over backwards to make sure I was happy. And then I asked him what he paid. And what he told me was consistent with what you would expect if you were to call, WhatsApp or whatever and inquire on your own. It was consistent with that. I don't know what he did for a living, but a lot of people in Turkey do make a lot more than 500 euros a month or 500 equivalent $500 a month. So, they do have local patients. Some of these better known clinics for sure. In fact, when I was visiting with Dr. Bisher, who will be live with me on Thursday answering questions, there were 2 local patients that I met, and it was normal, like normal cost, normal everything. There might have been some negotiation because that happens, but more or less roughly the same of that you'd pay if you called up and went to the same clinic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I understand. So my last question is regarding neck pillows. Because as I said yesterday, I will get a hair transplant in the future. And, from what I have seen of other people that has been posting their hair transplant surgeries and stuff like that, they have showed pictures of their neck pillows and that they have gotten from the clinic for free. And to be honest, those neck pillows does not look that good or comfortable or safe, quote unquote. So I wonder, do you have any suggestions in which type of neck pillow you should buy to get as much distance from your pillows and your head?
No,
so to speak.
Just they're all fine. I think okay, to answer the question, I think that if you're going to use a neck pillow, I think the best kind would be an inflatable neck pillow, because you can inflate it to where it's going to be firmer than a non-inflatable, which means also that you're maintaining that effect that you want from a neck pillow.
Yeah,
it's not going to compress nearly as much as a cloth pillow. So that's what I would use, but I never used one. No, I take that back. I think I used one before. But I just get like a towel and just roll it up and wrap it behind my head. Like that's all I ever did. And of course, if you're going to have FUE, the back of your scalp might be bandaged up. It depends on where you go. It might have a covering over it to protect it for the first night or two, which will also help. That's probably the case. And then if you get a strip, that won't be the case, but you could ask for something to wrap around the back of your head also, because you also want to keep everything clean. You don't want to bleed all over everything. So, yeah. But as far as inflatable pillows go, I think inflatable. I've never thought of this question before, but it would make sense to me that inflatable would be better.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I've been thinking about buying a neck pillow that is made of memory foam that adapts to the what is called the cervical, right? So which makes it more comfortable to sleep with, but it's not that safe because it will press. Well,
it's probably fine, honestly, but ultimately an inflatable would probably be best. And this is if you're considering sleeping, sitting up for the first couple of days, because if you lay down, you could lay down, but it would be best like in a recliner position, to where your back is still elevated. Honestly, after my last surgery, I don't even think I bothered. I'm so used to surgery now. Like I know I'm not going to be tossing and turning. I don't remember if I had a bandage. I think I had a bandage on the back of my head. No, I did not have a bandage on the back of my head. But I did have like a pillow cover, and I just went to sleep normally because it doesn't bother me. Like I'm confident enough in the work that's done, confident enough that I'm not going to scratch it. Like I don't do that. I know not to do that. I'm kind of at this point when it comes to surgery, I'm kind of I kind of disregard most safety protocols because I know my way around it. It's like it doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit scary, because it's almost like a pilot saying that he doesn't go after the checklist anymore because he's so used to it.
Yeah, no, it's not quite like that, but I understand. I understand your point, but no, I don't look at it as being in the same realm as that. But I understand the reference. But look, if you want to do a neck pillow, I think inflatable will probably be better for you. And yeah, in a reclining position, like I was talking about yesterday, then having two pillows under each arm, take a good dose of melatonin since you don't want to take actual medications. Knock yourself out.
Exactly.
and you're gold.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Joe.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you a lot, man. We will speak soon again.
All right. Look forward to it.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Toll free 1-833-563-4247. We've got just a couple minutes left. I got time for one more phone call. I'm going to give you guys a minute. Until then, I'm going to jump back into the chat room. Jeff Saffron, the ringing sound is super loud compared to voice. Yes, I know. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it except answer as soon as I can. Thin Blue Line says, Big Joe, when are they going to come up with a pill for gray hair? Guys like me are asking. I'm asking too, because I want to know. And I saw in some sort of headline in my news feed something about how they may have come up with something. It's probably in mice. The good thing for mice is there's a lot of hairy, non-graying mice in the world because of research. Let's see what else we got here. Hampton Hudson, good question. Did you ever do hormone blood work before or after jumping on finasteride at any time? No, I did not. Because when I first got on finasteride, it wasn't a thing on my radar to actually do a blood panel and check. And I've never done it since because it's like, what's the use? I'm on it. Let's see. Is Dr. Phil a candidate? I don't think so. Speaking of gray hair, just saw my first gray hair at 39. 39, huh? Good for you. Okay, that's it. It's 5 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this Tuesday edition of the main event. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Don't stay tuned because you got stuff to do, but be sure to check back in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and then 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. That's for you, FSK, for tomorrow's edition. I don't think I'll have anyone. It'll just be me sitting here with my my pretty mug answering questions. But Thursday, I will be having a special guest. It will be Dr. Özlem Bisher of Istanbul, here to answer your questions. Should be a good show. And I'll have my phones worked out to where everyone can hear each other. That's important. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.